Hello again. I wanted to take it a little bit closer to the floor because there's a lot more basic range of motion things we can work on long before we start to add engagement or strength building or overdeveloped musculature like repetitive bicep curls or something. It's important that we understand what the range of motion even is that we're looking for in the body, and also how we can benefit and how we can affect a healthier, more efficient, and even broader range of motion as we continue to age. So we're not getting less and less mobile and more static. We're actually staying more dynamic and staying more free and agile in the places that will give us more freedom, circulation, pulsing, and a life, right, of how do I want to communicate it? Inward and outward exchange, right, where the body can strengthen and it can also open. We can feel flexible, we can also feel powerful. And there's a lot that we want to sustain in that intention of life as we age. So hips, knees, and ankles are a place that really give us either a life of freedom in our spine or the opposite. If we don't have our roots and our power in this first floor, the bottom of our structure, we're not going to have that power to really support ourselves long term, and our spine is going to become more and more condensed as we get older. And then when we ask ourselves to try to stretch our spine up, it either hurts because we're cracking open dried and rigid connective tissue, which over time becomes more like shrink wrap. As we get older, it sticks to itself, and so when you start to open, it feels like you're in pain, and it's almost scary because it feels injurious. But in reality, you're just pulling tissues apart that have been sticking to each other. And when you do that, you're going to feel more, you're going to move more, but the end result is so spacious and so important for your spinal health and for your joints. Okay, so what I want you to think about is, how do you get up and down on the floor? And can that be, and I'm not kidding here, the crucial part of your practice that can actually start to change patterns, right? Think about, how do you normally get up and down off the floor or out of bed even? Usually with a grunt and a head lead, right? Like this sort of situation. And how do we get down? We just flop, right? And we kind of collapse there. And the idea is that at that point, you're not really honoring all of your joints and your spine and all this agility that you should be able to sustain. Instead, the body is kind of lumped together as a unit. So if you can get down to the floor, and oftentimes one of the best ways to do this is from standing, go to a wider stance, and then set one hip down as you come to the floor. And that way, you're prepared to not just fall or collapse, but you can start to actually arc. Okay, so arcing to the floor is really cool, and it feels amazing when you start to feel this length and extension in your spine. You're going to get one side of your spine to lengthen at a time. So if I'm on my right hip, my left hand is on the floor. That's going to be holding my body weight and actually pushing away. So the more I push into the floor, I can move my ribs away. I'm resisting gravity. Right? My arm that's on the bottom is not really bearing a lot of weight. It's just going to slide me down. And I'm resisting. My head goes low, but my ribs stay up, 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 until I get really long on my side body. Doing the reverse, pushing into that outside top hand and letting the head come last. You can even extend that top leg a little bit longer. Doing 2 or 3 of these on one side at a time is really cool for building, yeah, a little bit of arm strength, but truly agility and freedom in the areas that tend to be a little bit tighter. I call them the tickle spots. We tend to close the throat, we close the belly, especially we close, close the flank of the body, the side ribs, and we want to keep that a lot more spacious and more open. So just practicing 2 or 3 of these, and then before you do the other side, how can you transition from the side body to the back body? Well, in the same way. Your head goes, you reach your arms up to the sky so you don't lose your back rib fullness. Then you can rotate your shoulders, your ribs, your belly, your knees. And in that, you allow, again, the spine to now spiral. So when we come from the side hip to the side body, we're arcing, and then we come from the side body to the back body, we're spiraling the spine and kind of uncoiling the very center, okay? And once you're on your back, it's so nice to just keep your toes grounded on the floor and push your thigh bones away from you. In that, you can wiggle out more space, creating distance between pelvic floor and rib cage and head. These three really round parts of the body start to separate apart, and that's how we can remember that we have different areas along the trunk. Our pelvis, our belly, our ribs, our neck, our head. And if you've ever heard of yoga, right, that stuff is kind of popular. It's the chakra system. And we can actually start to feel different elements, different aspects of our life along the vertical axis of the spine, okay? So coming over to the other side, the knees would lead the way, and the head goes last. And then pressing the top arm, the head goes last, that top leg can extend, and then doing maybe 3 to 5 of these, where you try to keep your bicep connected to your ear. You can go slow and drag that bottom arm, but the main focus is really arcing and lifting the rib cage up and opening through the whole side of that spine. Not just the side body, but really trying to open up the spine itself. And then head back. When you come from side to back, the head leads. When you come from back to side, the knees lead. And if you get into it, you might as well just roll around on the floor a couple of times, right? And it might feel a little bit silly at first, but when you can start to separate and discern all these pieces and parts of the body, you're going to get a lot of feedback and a lot of healthy range of motion. Okay, so this is really important for long-term just feeling good in your body, is that you still have the ability to separate all the pieces and parts. And when they're discerning and when they have their individual job, they carry only the weight that they're meant to carry, no more pressure on the knees than necessary. That's when everything starts to work a lot more balanced. Okay, so this last one is really important for your hips and particularly finding more space in the belly. Now, I really love bolsters. I think they're a great support. Let's see if I can see. Yeah, so I have a narrow one. Oftentimes you'll see them about twice as wide and almost twice as tall. But any big pillow, or you could, even roll up a yoga mat, but just having something to elevate one of your legs on is going to be really helpful for your pelvis. So that practice to come down to the floor, if you just do this 5 times, that's a really good practice. Roll on your back and then go back to breathing, where you're just separating the ribs, the hips, the head apart from each other and relaxing. But another way to relax after you come onto the floor is to stack a bolster or a pillow underneath your knee and your lower leg. So not so much the upper leg, although if you have a thicker bolster, obviously it will. But you want the lower leg to feel really supported. My back leg, I'm moving my butt behind the line of my heart. This is really important so that I can let my low back curve be naturally present without engaging, without forcing it with any low back muscles at all. It's just a natural forward tilt. And instantly my belly can relax. It feels so good to go into the breath there. Another detail is you don't want the knee low. You want your knee, the top knee, actually higher, closer to your belly than your hip joint itself. And that is, again, to really help with that anterior tilt of the pelvis. That's it, folks. Then you lay your top arm, your bottom ear to your bicep, and you just let the belly really draw forward and the ribs fill backwards. This is called baby hurdler. It's quite a restorative posture, and it seems easy. But, taking the time and actually doing the work, that's the hard part, right? So putting yourself in this position, and then 3 to 5 minutes. That's the real work, because you're going to come face to face with all the things, all the feelings, all the thoughts, all the worries, all the distractions, and that's the work, is to simply come back and build a sensitivity to what's happening, particularly in your belly, in your hip, and in your low back. And this is going to give you a lot of freedom. You might choose to twist to face the floor, put another pillow underneath your head, something that elevates your head about in line with your ribs, maybe a little bit higher. And then you can feel a little bit of twisting, range of motion there. But that can be pretty intense if you don't have a lot of space. So you never want to twist your body in a small position. You always want to go as long as you can as you rotate. Okay, when you come to the other side, I'll add in one little cool thing for your hips. Okay, before we do the other side of baby hurdler, one more cool thing for your hips and your ankles actually, which can help you with your knees, is toes down, heels lift. And I really just mean like two, we always used to say like 2 quarters, like 50 cents worth. Just a little bit under your heels, right? So they don't lift high. But the idea is then you lift and lower. And as you do, you don't want the ankles to roll out or collapse in. When your heels are hovering and you lift and lower, they never really touch. You're actually going to build flexibility and range of motion in that joint. So I'm just up and down. And I want you to try to pressure a little bit more through the big toe side of your foot. And if you really feel sensitive, you could actually connect your big toe and tone all the way up to your pubic bone. That will give you crazy inner thighs, super strong, sexy legs, and a really healthy, toned pelvic floor. But really, the most important thing is it's going to keep your hips nice and free, because when your ankles are free, your hips are a lot more free. Okay, now once you've done that, you know, good 10 times or so, pause and relax. Again, all of this is done with your toes down, your toes softly curling into the floor. You're going to push against your thigh bones. And in that, again, it's like you're trying to sandwich your thighs against your hamstrings. This is really it's like a pattern that you'll see a lot in the work that I do, because so many people have weakness here and that stickiness in the base glutes where we've tucked and protected for so long. So we want to keep the arch. The push of the thigh bones helps to lengthen the belly and naturally tilt the pelvis forward. Then really slow, knees left and knees right. I actually put my fingers in my hip crease here because it helps me to feel the minute my grip, the tightness, the overwork starts to come into the front of the hip flexor. You want to even keep the heels hovering. It'll give you more sensitivity to what's going on. What's overworking, usually the front, the mouth, the eyebrows, and what's underworking, usually the back, the invisible, the glutes, okay? That goes for the back of the neck as well. And then once you've gone couple of times, you know, like windshield wipers through both knees. Oh, one more detail on that. When your knees are going side to side, you don't want your hips to lift. Okay, you want to keep your pelvis as steady against the floor as you can make it, which may mean that your knees don't move so far. That's actually a good decision. If you don't move to such a big range of motion at first, you're going to build healthy patterns for smaller range of motion, and that will ultimately build like a snowball, and you'll be able to increase your range of motion without lifting and, again, putting too much of a one unit situation happening in the hip, but the legs and the pelvis start to work separately and therefore can hold just the weight that they're meant to hold. All right, knees lead the way, spiral inside the body to come onto your side, and then you stack so that the lower leg is supported. Keep your hips behind the heart and turn your belly to the floor, and you can either just top arm rest right in front of your heart or lengthen, 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 and twist your belly more towards the floor. Again, the twist is a little bit more of the advanced option. Laying on your back, on your side rather, is a little bit more accessible. So let me know if any questions come up with this. But those two actions, the baby hurdler and then the side-to-side actions in your knees, are so good for your hips and low back. And then heels hovering, heels down is really great for building agility and strength in both your ankles and your knees. This takes time, but once you're working with the connective tissue and feeling more confident with the tissues hugging from the edges in to the bone, then you can start to play with positioning your body and laying on the floor and then moving and being a little dynamic with it. All right, hope that helps. Let me know if any questions pop up. Talk to you soon.